a great demo today for you regarding the ever popular and very trendy these days bone broth. I'm going to show you how to make a chicken bone broth using my very favorite kitchen appliance, my crock pot. If you don't have a crock pot, you can check out my other videos and see why I am so in love with using a crock pot, because it's so quick and easy and simple. And that's how I like to keep things. So, bone broth. What is bone broth? Bone broth is basically cooking down some chicken bones with some vegetables, a little bit of herbs and spices for a very long time, extracting all of the good amino acids, the collagen, which is basically gelatin, a lot of minerals out of the bones, and at the end of the cooking process, you'll end up with a delicious and nutritious broth that you can use as a base for soups and sauces. You can use it just to drink on its own for the health promoting benefits that you'll find, or even freeze it in ice cube trays, and you can use it anytime you're cooking something. You can just pop out a couple because it's a much better substitute for just using the little bases or store-bought, shop-bought chicken broths or beef stocks in the store. Making it yourself, lots more vitamins, lots more minerals, and like I said, the amino acid content. So bone broth is allegedly very good for promoting digestion, improving your immunity. You've all heard from the doctor, you know, drink your chicken soup or have your chicken soup when you're sick. Research suggests that there are a lot of healing properties that just helps boost your immunity, easy to digest, good for joint recovery. You've got your collagen in there, your amino acids. So just all around, it's a really good, healthy thing to incorporate into your diet. And especially in the cold winter months right now, making soup using your own chicken stock or bone broth is an excellent way to go to get a lot of extra nutrition. So what we're starting with here is I'm actually going to make chicken and bone broth. So chicken broth and bone broth. I like to kill two birds with one stone. I'm going to cook my meat in the crock pot with all the ingredients. About 4 or 6 hours into the process, I'm going to remove my cooked chicken meat, throw the bones back in, and continue cooking for a full 24 hours on low in the crock pot. If you don't want to do the chicken part and you just have a couple whole carcasses from a roasted chicken that you've made before, you want about 1 kilogram or about 2 pounds of bones to get about 3 or 4 liters or about 1 gallon of stock yield at the end. But I'm starting with about 6 pounds or about 3 kilos of chicken quarters. And then I'm going to skin those, get them ready to go, but you also want your vegetables. We have celery. I've got about 1 pound of celery or half a kilo of celery, a lot of carrots, a couple of onions, and some thyme and parsley. So these are the vegetables, the mirepoix, classically speaking, that you want to put into your stock. Chicken stock or bone broth, culinarily, is common in any high-end restaurant or any restaurant that's cooking from scratch. This is nothing new. Any kitchen around the world is going to use that. You can also throw in some bay leaves, a couple of black peppercorns, just whole black peppercorns, as well, and then maybe a little bit of acid, so apple cider vinegar, white wine vinegar, to also help kind of soften the bones, extracting more of the minerals out of that. So I'm going to prep the veg separately, but I'm going to get started on the chicken. Again, you don't have to mess with whole chicken, but I need protein to eat throughout the course of the week, so I'm going to go ahead and simultaneously cook my protein and get that out of the process as well. So I'll show you how that works, but basically I'm going to just skin this. You want to remove and trim any excess fat. We're going to be, if little bits stay on, that's fine, but you just get in there with your hands and remove the skin. Comes right off. I keep a little trash bowl. All of you can also make broth out of fish bones too. So you can have beef, you can have chicken, you can have fish. It works. With the fish, you're going to cook it a little bit less because those bones are really small. It took me a few minutes, but I skinned all of the chicken and tried to trim the excessive bits of fat. I have this nice, delicious bowl of garbage. And now I'm just going to head over and pop it right into the crock pot. So we could just dump it right in. So that's nice and easy. Like I like it. So kind of spread it out there, and the next step that we're going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and add a little bit of water and put these on, set it on low, which is, you know, there's only 3 settings on my crock pot. And I'll go ahead and cover it with cold water while I prep the vegetables that I'm going to add on top. So I'm going to put about 1 liter of water in here to get started, and then move on to just coarse chopping my vegetables. But I'm going to wash my hands real quick because I handled the chicken, and I like to be sanitary. So on to what is classically known as the mirepoix, or some people will tell you that you could just throw in the vegetables, like the onions, peel and all, but because I'm going to try to salvage the chicken meat out of this, I don't want to be fighting through little bits of root fibers and onion skin. So I'm just going to go ahead and peel my onion. I also think it might contribute a little bitterness, but I don't know. It doesn't matter. If you are in a hurry and you don't care, chuck the whole onion in, because it's just in there for flavor and maybe a little bit of nutrient extraction. But I've got 2 large onions here. I just cut it right in half. All of our vegetables are just coarse chopped. It doesn't matter. We're not eating any of these at the end of the day. They're going to be cooked to smithereens. So they're going to be filtered out. Everything will be extracted from them, so don't concern yourself with taking too long on this bit. So that was about 2 large onions, making my eyes water, crying. So now I've got about a pound of carrots. Again, you could throw in the whole bit. I've washed them. That's good enough for me. I don't even want to bother with peeling them for this. Just coarse chop. And right in as well. No need to peel, don't even remove the stem. And then I've got about the same amount of celery. I've washed it as well, so there's no dirt or mud. And throwing that right in. So now heading back over to the crock pot, we're just going to layer this stuff down right on top of our chicken. I'm not going to season it with any salt at this point. Salt is great, but I feel like we can salt it at the point of use. So for right now, we're just making the stock. We're just making the bone broth. If for flavor's sake down the road you want to add some salt, that's great, but it might cook down, and once you add salt, you can't really take it away. So I'm going to add a few. And a little bit of parsley. So we've got thyme, we've got parsley. Try to stuff it down around in there. Make it all fit. And I'm going to throw in a few bay leaves for extra flavor. I'm going to just tuck those in the sides. And lastly, or next to last, we'll throw down a few black peppercorns. Again, just kind of for flavor. There we go. Cover it with water. Probably about another liter of water. Keep an eye on it because this is very full. I do not want to, to overfill the crock pot. I can add a little bit more. Make sure it all fits Get that parsley. Lid on, nice and tight. It will cook down. On low, it's already going, and we'll be back in 6 hours. I am back. It's actually been about 8 hours. With this much food in the crock pot, you really do probably want to let it go for at least a good 8 hours on low to make sure that the chicken gets nice and cooked through. But now what I'm going to do, because I want to harvest my meat off of the bones, I am going to very carefully try to remove some of the veg from the top. I'm going to add it all back in, but I just want to have easy access to the chicken. I'm going to pull the chicken out, maybe let it cool, I don't know, or just go ahead and be impatient and pick the meat off the bones and then add the bones back into the broth. Just fish it out as carefully as possible. Runaway carrot. And again, you don't have to go to this much trouble. If you don't want to have to deal with this step, you can just put the bones in, put the vegetables, put water, and let it go for 24 hours. 2 steps and you're done. I just want to have some meat to make some soup and make chicken salad. You can make all sorts of different recipes using the meat. A few minutes to just let the chicken cool down, and I've split it up into 2 bowls to kind of help facilitate that process. And now I'm just going to go ahead. It might be a little hot. You can let it cool as long as you need, but I'm just going to pick the good bits of the meat right off the bone and save that for use later. But any of the nasty bits, the cartilage and the little pin bones and stuff, not worth saving. Like if it doesn't look like something you want to shove in your face right now, put it back in the stock. So I've got my bowl for my bones, a bowl for my meat, and I'm just going to sit here and pick through it all for the stuff I want to keep and the stuff I want to trash. And again, it should just basically fall right off the bone, and what doesn't can just go right back in. It took a few minutes, but I picked most of the usable portion of the meat off the bones, and now I'm going to throw all the gnarly bits and bones and knobs and cartilage back into the pool to continue cooking and extracting all the remaining nutrients and whatnot off of them. I'll push that kind of back down in there. You can add a little bit more water if it looks like the amount of water has gone down, but really I want it to concentrate and gelatinize and everything anyway, so this is actually probably fine. In the case that you are just using bones initially to make your bone broth, you also might want to add a little bit of vinegar, apple cider vinegar, just a couple tablespoons before you start cooking it. That helps kind of leach the minerals and everything out of the bone. At this stage in the game, for me, it probably doesn't matter that I add vinegar or not, but because I have it on hand, I'm doing it. But if you're starting from scratch and you're just using bones, when you cover it with water, add your vinegar then, and then go ahead, add your veg and heat it up. But it supposedly helps in the extraction process. I find it works either way, so up to you. It's been just about 24 hours. Again, 12 to 24 hours, however long you want to let this stock go. It'll just develop more flavor and get a lot more roasted, but we are ready to strain it and put it away to cool. Deep and brown. I've turned it off, and I have just a little strainer here that I've lined with. I had tea bags on hand that I just separated coffee filters, butter muslin, cheesecloth, whatever you have to kind of strain out all the bits. Otherwise, if you don't even want to line your strainer, just use a strainer. Little pieces might come through, but it's fine. Be very careful picking this up. It's hot. You could let it cool a little bit. It's very heavy as well, but we lift weights. We're strong. So you're just going to pour it off as I make a mess. We're going to pour it very carefully into our strainer. There we go. That's better. Careful not to burn yourself, and also not to let this kind of fall out into the strainer, that'll make a nice big splash and a mess. So we don't want that to happen. Hope I didn't lose too much. And again, pick it up and keep pouring. Mind the steam. All right, and if you've done this properly, your bones should be, yeah, they just kind of smush. They almost just crumble apart. All the stuff left in here, let it cool off, and it's just garbage. I'm just going to toss it. You can compost it, feed it to an animal or something. I don't know if that's safe or not, so whatever. But just let it strain. It produces a lot, so if you wanted to go ahead and pour some of it into little ice cube trays, pop it in your freezer, then you can just use a little bit at a time when you're cooking to throw it into some sauteed vegetables or whatever you may need. You don't want to hold on to this for much longer than 5 days in the refrigerator. So if you're not going to use it within 5 days, which I will easily go through it in 5 days, you want to freeze it. All right? Let that strain out. And one last little bit about the bone broth. After it cools down, it should turn into a really nice viscous, gelatinous mass, which is what we're looking for. When you melt that down or when you heat it up, it will re-liquefy. So don't worry about that. Is any of the fat that was left over that got through. Once you cool it down, it's going to solidify on the top as well. So at that point, you could come and just kind of skim it off and get rid of it. This hasn't quite cooled all the way, so it's not hard yet, but it should harden and be pretty easy to take off. But you don't necessarily want all this fat in your nice, clear, delicious bone broth. And then the last little piece that I've decided to do is with all that stuff that was left after my first batch, I just decided it looked really good, it smelled really good, and I've heard that you can actually reuse that as well. So I went ahead and I added several more liters of water back to the crock pot, and I'm letting it go again for another 24 hours. This won't be as nutrient dense, it probably won't have as much collagen, but it'll still be an excellent, delicious base for any of my regular daily cooking. Again, it's still going to beat what you can buy at the shop, at the supermarket. It's going to be better than the little bouillon cubes and store-bought broths and stocks. So still just make your own, and this way we can get 2 batches of bone broth for the price of 1. So enjoy it.